You know, raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
Hello. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast. I'm your host, Christen Clark. The Collide Kids podcast is a show for kids and families where we learn together how life and faith collide. I am so glad that you're listening today. Thank you guys so much for being here and spending this time with me. If this is your first time listening, I want to let you know that at the end of every episode, we have the kids only segment where kids just like you get to be on the podcast. If you want to be on the kids only segment in one of our next episodes, head over to my website, collidekidspodcast.com, and you can record yourself right there. Just click on the tab that says kids only, or you can send me a video through my social media. And while you're at the website, be sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter. It's a newsletter that comes out once a month. That's how monthly works. The monthly newsletter lets you be the first to know about upcoming episodes, giveaways, and also fun family content like recipes, family game night ideas, and lots more. There's lots of things for your family to enjoy, so be sure to subscribe today. Well, before I introduce my guest, I just want to take a moment to thank those sponsors of today's episode, the Baby Believer series from Catechesis Books. Baby Believer primers help parents teach their children the central tenets of the Christian faith that they may never know a day apart from the Lord. Well, listen, I am so excited for you guys to hear from our guest today. His name is Peter Nestler. He is a 7-time world champion rope jumper and has broken 12 Guinness World Records. He travels around the world performing in schools and churches with his unique jump rope and unicycling program. You guys are going to be inspired and encouraged by this conversation with my friend, Peter Nestler. Well, Peter Nestler, I am so excited to have you on the Collide Kids podcast today.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this is so fun. Our friend Yancey connected us and told me I definitely should talk to you. Would you just tell everybody what it is that you do?
I am a professional jump roper, which I know sounds like a very unusual job, and it is. I travel around the world doing jump rope and unicycling programs. I do a lot of school events. I do a lot of school assembly programs. I do a lot of church events, and we literally go all over the world. I was just over in Dubai and not too long ago doing some shows, and literally everywhere in the world doing jump rope stuff. And then with all of that, I have 7 world championships that I've won, and I've also broken 12 Guinness World Records.
Ooh, okay. I'm really excited to talk to you about this. But before we do that, because this is a show for kids, I always ask my guests to tell me a joke. So do you have a joke for us today?
Yes, I had to find a jumping joke
okay.
sort of fit the mood here. So can a frog jump higher than a house?
Can a frog jump higher than a house? I don't know.
Well, of course it can. A house can't jump. So,
That's
I didn't say
true.
it was good, but I did say I would find one.
That's good. I was thinking, could it? I don't know. We have a lot of frogs in my yard because we have a pond outside. So I'm thinking a few of them probably could, but you're right. Houses cannot jump. Okay, well, let's get into your story because I just find this fascinating. You broke a lot of records. You won all these championships. But how did you get started in jump rope? What made you excited about jump rope?
So when I was in elementary school, we had a jump rope team come in and do a show. And my PE teacher was really into not just doing sports. But he's like, hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it really well. So he decided, let's start a jump rope competitive team. And so I got on that team, and we ended up winning world championships starting from my year 3, third grade, and we won 7 years in a row, and had a lot of really great opportunities with that team. And he decided, well, instead of just being competitive, just practicing all the time, he's like, let's go travel around. So we got to travel around the world doing shows through elementary, middle, and high school. I was doing. We did stuff in Australia, Sweden, Denmark. We did like NBA halftime games. We were doing stuff at Disneyland, Disney World. So we're literally going all over the place. And I'm from a real small town in Alaska. So we're, just a tiny little town up here. And we had probably one of the best jump rope teams in the world.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really cool. And I'll start with your PE teacher, like, we're going to do this right.
Yeah, exactly. So it was that mentality of, well, if we're going to do this, let's be good at it. I don't want to
go all out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's actually really been a part of my life. And something I definitely picked up from him was, well, if you're going to do something, let's do it the best we can instead of just, half-hearted doing something.
So is it something that, like, once you started trying it, you picked it up immediately, or is it something you had to practice a while to get the hang of?
Oh, I was pretty bad when I first started. So, yeah, I definitely took a lot of practice to get good at jump roping.
I think that's interesting to know that when you started, it wasn't just a natural thing. You're pretty bad at it. And now you've broken all these world records. So how did you go from being not very good at it to breaking all these records? How did you get into all the record breaking stuff?
The record breaking thing actually was after I was already performing professionally. We won all the world championships when I was in school. And then after I graduated, I started performing professionally. And my first job, I was 17. I went to Chicago and I was performing there with a friend of mine who was doing some shows. And so right after my wife and I got married, we got hooked on to doing a school tour. So we were doing about 400 schools a year around the United States. And so we were just driving place to place to place. And when you're living a life on the road, just going from school to school, it gets a little boring just because you're doing the exact same thing every day with not a lot of sleep. And so during that time, I was looking for things that could kind of, sort of shake things up a little bit for me as far as like my workouts. And we were actually watching the news one day, and there was this video about this girl breaking a jump roping record on a unicycle. And I saw that and I was like, well, I could do that. And then I was like,
that's not a normal thought that people have, Peter. People are like, whoa, that's amazing. But you thought, I could do that.
Yeah, I could totally beat that. So I started training and then I was training for that. And I was like, I wonder what other records there are. So I started looking them up and I was like, oh, I could hop a mile on one foot while jump roping. Oh, I could jump rope underwater for an hour. And I'm going through all this stuff. And, like I said, most people are just like, that's not normal. And I'm just like, this sounds awesome. So I started training for all these different records. And at certain points of the time, I was actually training for like 3 or 4 records at once. Mm-hmm. And so it just allowed me to kind of work on something different while I was waiting around for kids coming in and out of assemblies. And so I'd just be in the back jumping on my unicycle or, practicing hopping on one foot or, all sorts of random things.
Do you have like a person that's training you, like a coach, or was it something you were just learning yourself?
Most of the stuff I did just by myself at that point for all the records. Having been on the jump rope team and having all those coaches for all those years, I had a lot of really good discipline and things kind of figured out on how to develop training plans and how to like work towards specific goals. So with the records, I knew like, this is what my target is. This is what I want to reach. So then I was able to kind of look at that and say, okay, well, where am I really weak? And then I always start with my weakest point and say, okay, these are the things that I need to work on the most. And I would train those. And then while I'm doing that, it helps my better side get, improve as well. So I never actually really had a specific coach for those records, but knowing the technique, and I'm really self-motivated and disciplined. So
yeah, I think that's interesting because I'm a voice and a piano teacher. And so I talk to my kids when I'm teaching them about like, if there's a part of the music that you keep messing up on, or you're like not good at, you're weak at, that's your weakest point. Keep going over that part over and over again until you get it. And then you keep building from that. And so that's kind of what you did. You find that part like, okay, this part I'm good at, but this part I've got to work on. And you focus on that. And that's how you get better. Yeah.
And that's actually, for me, everything I do, I always start with basically just taking an itinerary of like, this is my worst spot. And I basically focus on all the worst spots. And a lot of people, when they do that, they'll just see they're like, well, I'm bad at this and this and this. And they'll say, okay, well, I'm obviously pathetic, or I need help, or they're like, this will never happen. And I'm the opposite. I'm just like, okay, well, I know where my weak points are. Now I know what I need to work on. And I allow those to kind of drive me to get better versus letting it sort of just tear me down and just be like, well, this will never happen. So a lot of it's just the mentality and the mindset of how you approach where you're weak at.
Yeah. And I think that's good too for us to remember that when we're going through anything in life, whether it's sports or music or school or whatever, is when you find those things that you're not good at, it's okay to admit that you're not good at those things. But then there's also that discipline that we need to have that drives us to make those things better and improve. That's how we're going to grow.
Oh, precisely. Growth always comes from improvement. And if all you're ever focusing on is your, sort of your strong side, at some point, those weak points are going to show up and they're going to be glaringly bad if you never actually worked on them.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your training method. So, because I don't think any of us are training for jump rope records. So what is that like? Like how often do you practice? Do you have like a certain workout regimen or anything that you do to get really good at jump rope?
Well, it all depends on which record I'm working on. So if you've ever looked through Guinness, and I always like to tell kids this when I'm performing, is I'm like, you'll notice that pretty much every record is a little weird. Guinness, they have some normal ones, but it seems like they're just sort of known for these like oddball records, like, oh, we got the longest fingernails or, weird things. So for me, it's like, okay, well, when you're walking in, it's like, okay, I'm not just jump roping. It's like I have to jump rope while juggling a soccer ball, or I have to jump rope on a unicycle, or I have to jump rope underwater. So how you train is dictated very much by the specific record. I actually did jump roping underwater for an hour, which, you can't hold your breath that long. So what I would do is I would drop down, hold my breath as long as I could, jump as many times as I can, and then stand up. And then you take a breath and you do that up and down. Well, the challenge with that is jumping underwater is a really good shoulder workout. So I had to do a lot of training to develop my shoulder strength and then also my wrist strength because you're moving a rope through the water. And then the majority of the problem with that was actually finding what kind of rope works underwater. So I ended up using a metal jump rope that we sort of built. We found this banding iron that was kind of really thin but wide, so it would cut through the water really well. So that was actually a big challenge, was finding that. The other part is when you're jumping underwater is it's like, okay, if I just hold my breath as long as I possibly can and then stand up, and you spend all this time at the surface before you go back down again. Well, you just wasted, a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, just catching your breath again. So developing sort of a routine where I could say, okay, how long can I stay down without having to spend a lot of time on the surface breathing between, afterwards. So it was kind of finding that sweet spot. And so you're sort of just figuring out what's the most effective way to do this to maximize my time underwater. Mm-hmm. And then doing that over and over and over again for months on end until you could do it consistently for an hour. So when I did that record, I was trying to beat 900. I ended up doing 1,871. So I more than doubled it in the end.
Yeah.
So, I was really happy with that.
Now, did you do this like in the ocean or at a pool, or where did you do your practicing?
At the time, I was living at a townhouse complex, and they actually had a pool. So thankfully, I could just go over there and practice. Everybody thought I was nuts because I
was going to say, what do your neighbors think of that?
Well, most of them were like 70 or 80, so they just see this guy walk out there, and they're like, "Why does he have a jump rope?"
Jump rope guy's back.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a weight belt, and I'm just down there like in the deep end, up and down, and they're just like, "Okay, that was weird."
Let's talk a little bit more about this whole like discipline track. And like, I know that you said that's part of your personality. You're just a very disciplined person. Is that something that you developed as you did jump roping, or is that something that's kind of always been in you? We'll be right back after this. One of my favorite things to give at a baby shower is a cute book, and I especially love the idea of that book being colorful, educational, and full of theology. That's why I'm really excited to introduce you to our sponsor, the Baby Believer series by Catechesis Books. These primers help parents teach their children the central tenets of the Christian faith that they may never know a day apart from the Lord. Moms Danielle and Jessica looked everywhere for fun educational books for their toddlers that also introduced their little ones to the basics of the Christian faith. When their search came up empty, they decided to create their own books. These 12 books are designed to grow with children from early infancy through elementary school. They are extra sturdy board books made with non-toxic inks and coatings. I love that. The Baby Believers series of board books are a colorful and creative way to introduce your child to the Bible while teaching them basic skills such as counting, movement, and the alphabet. How cool is that? Go to catechesisbooks.com to purchase yours today.
Well, one thing that I like to think about with this is that what actually is discipline? Because a lot of people, they'll look at somebody like me and they'll just be like, well, you're disciplined, therefore you can do it. I don't have that discipline. Well, a lot of times it just depends on what are you disciplined in. I mean, if discipline was, can you eat a cookie every single day for your life?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay, well, you can be a very disciplined cookie eater. Okay, so it's just...
I am.
so congratulations. Yeah,
Thank you.
But the thing is, you're not going to be automatically disciplined at something that you actually want to accomplish. It's usually something that you don't want to do. So the trick is sort of figuring out habits where you can say, how can I motivate myself to do something to get the result that I want on a consistent basis? And that is basically what discipline is. So for me, I would just say, okay, well, I have to work out every single morning. I don't allow myself to not work out. So I work out 7 days a week. I'm in the gym every single day. I never take a day off because for me, it's that habit, that routine of doing it. Now, when you first start doing it, it's not a lot of fun. But once you get kind of into that routine, it feels weird when you're not doing it. And that to me is when something is like clicked in as I am disciplined doing this, is if I don't do it, it feels weird.
Yeah.
So just having that routine and just, basically picking something that you can do every single day. And so some of the ways to do that is because people are like, how do I start with that? Is whatever you're trying to be good at or you develop that habit or that discipline, you want to pick something and make it as easy as possible to do. You don't want to have a 37-step process before you can start something. For instance, like if you were to, I don't know, let's go with going to the gym just because I'm already talking about that.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, okay, well, if I got to go to the gym, it means I have to wake up 3 hours earlier than I actually want to wake up. It means I have to, drive 37 miles to get there. You just have this huge, set of problems that you have to overcome. You just want to make it as simple as possible. So you set your clock for, okay, this is, if I wake up at this time, you have your clothes laid out. So when you wake up, you don't have to think about it. You just put your clothes on, get in the car, you drive. Hopefully you want to pick someplace that's close to you. You get in there, you already know what you're going to do that day. And so everything's just as simple as possible. So that way, when you show up to do it, you actually can do it without having to really process and think through and, overcome a lot of difficulties. So that's usually the biggest starting point, is just trying to make it as simple as possible to actually, get in the habit of doing, whatever activity you're trying to do.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think another thing is learning to love the journey and not just waiting for the result to be when you're happy and excited about what you're doing, but learning to love, like we're talking about working out or like the process of training and disciplining yourself. And if you learn to love that, that's going to be a lot easier to get into it than just waiting for it to be completely results driven.
And the funny part is like having broken all these world records. One question people always ask is they're just like, oh, how does it feel when you break a record? The reality is it's often a big letdown. Like you've been training all this time. I know I can break it. You go out and you do it and you're just like, I thought I would feel something more with that. But you're just like, well, I guess I'm done. Now what?
Right. Back to training.
The funniest one out of all of them was when I did that underwater record, it was like, I'm jumping underwater for an hour. And when I got out of the pool, they're just like, how does it feel? And I looked over and I was at this YMCA and they had this big sign above the pool that said, do not pee in the pool. And they're just like, how's it feel to break a record? And I was like, give me a minute. I'll be right back. So like the reality, I was like, that's all I felt. Like I just had to go. And it's just like nothing to do with the record anyway, shape or form. And so if your focus is like, once I get there, I'll finally be happy. If that's how you think life is going to actually make you happy by accomplishing things, it's not usually the case. The journey really is where happiness comes from. And it's kind of that struggle and that constant kind of push where you're kind of pushing yourself a little bit more and more every day. That's actually where happiness is found. It's like you can't really keep satisfaction. It's something you can have for small moments through a struggle and through a journey. That's actually where happiness is there. And then once you get it, you can't really keep it. There's no way of just holding on to it, be like, okay, now I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. That's not how it works. So you're going to have it for these fleeting moments. It's usually during the struggle where you're going to feel that happiness and that joy. And then once you've won, it's like, okay, cool. Now what? And that's where I'm like, for me, I'm like, okay, that's why I keep doing records. It's like, well, I need another challenge because that's where you find that happiness.
So I love this idea of, you talk about, I think this is something you get to talk about with the assemblies and schools and things like that, is about owning your identity. What is it about owning your identity that's important for you to convey that as a message?
Oddly enough, this started when I was going through the 10 Commandments. So you sit there and you read through the 10 Commandments, and one of them is do not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, if you go with the old King James Version. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people are just like, well, you just can't cuss and say God's name, and which obviously shouldn't do, but I don't think the commandment has anything to do with that. It's actually more about owning an identity, that if you're saying, I am a follower of God, that means that your lifestyle should reflect what you're owning. Yeah. And so my example, just from the way my life has gone, is being a jump roper. I could either be embarrassed of that, or I can really own the fact that that's who I am. And it really stuck out to me when I was in high school, because I had this, being in elementary school and on the jump rope team, okay, you can be kind of cool. You get to middle school, they're like, are you still doing that? And then you get to high school and people seriously think there's something wrong with you. They're just like, oh, you should be on the football team or the basketball team. Yeah. And you're still jump roping and you're in high school. And I'm like, yeah, but it's awesome. And they don't see it that way. Well, I had this one kid that was in my school, and he would sit behind me in one of my classes, and he would just say, jump rope's a girl sport. And it was just so annoying and kind of embarrassing at the same time, until one day it kind of struck me. I was like, jump rope is a girl's sport. That's not a bad thing, because here I am, one of the few guys doing it. And so I'm like, when I'm traveling with a bunch of girls. They smell better than guys do. They're a lot prettier than guys. And we're getting this opportunity to travel around the world with a bunch of girls. And then just the fact that there were just so few guys doing it at the time, we had opportunities to travel that most people wouldn't get to go, because anytime somebody would call our team up, they say, hey, we want your team to come down, but we really want you to bring your boys, because we want to show people that it's a sport for both boys and girls. And so me, my best friend, and a couple other guys, we had like 4 really good jumpers on the team. We had opportunities that came up just because we were different than everybody else. And by owning that identity and just sort of saying, okay, you know what? I am this person. I am a jump roper. I would get the opportunity to go travel and do so much more than somebody that would be kind of embarrassed of that same position. And this plays out in so many different areas in life. If you're a person that looks at yourself and you see yourself as kind of a loser who's quiet, and you're just sort of all down on yourself all the time, that's going to reflect how you interact with other people and how you interact with the world. Right. Your identity is owned by this, I'm just a quiet person that can't accomplish anything, versus somebody who is, just like, what, this is how God made me. This is my personality. This is my talent pool. This is what I'm good at. And they own the fact that this is who I am. They're going to be a lot more confident in going out and trying to accomplish things.
Yes, I think that's so true. And I think it's really interesting to always consider how God made you is the most important thing, not what other people say you are. Because if we're always relying on other people to tell us who we are, we're not going to get very far. We're not going to do the things that God created us to do. He created us.
And we're all made so differently. I mean, everybody's got a different skill set. And I think so much time is spent, like, especially you go through like middle school and high school kids, it seems like they're so focused on saying, I don't want to stand out. I want to fit in. And all their effort is, put into trying to be just like everybody else. But the reality is, whenever you meet somebody, what is it that you remember about them? You remember the unique qualities, what's different about them. You don't just like walk up and be like, wow, they're wearing clothes. So do I. This is amazing.
We're the same.
Yeah, we're exactly the same. I mean, the thing you remember about people is always those unique things. You're just like, wow, that guy's got a really interesting haircut, or, or that girl's earrings are really different. And you remember the unique parts about somebody. And once I kind of grasped that with myself, I was like, you know what? This is who I am. I'm like, I am very unique. I'm very different. And, but that's cool.
And I think it's good too, if we're all the same, then we're not going to accomplish very much. But if we all have different gifts and talents and abilities, I think you can do so much more, especially for the kingdom of God. We've all been given different spiritual gifts and different abilities that God put in us. And so we all have different jobs to do and different purposes. And so if we're all the same, we're not going to get a whole lot done.
There was a bumper sticker in Texas that said, if the two of you are exactly alike, then one of you is not needed. So
that's true.
We all are different. And the reality is we're going to connect differently with different people. And, trying to reach people, just sharing the love of God with people, it's like, I'm going to connect with some people very differently than somebody else. Who's going to reach this person? It might be me. It might be, somebody that's really into yo-yos. I mean, like, who knows? I mean, they're just, how people connect and react. It's just, we're all important. We all have an aspect and a part to play, in this journey, and especially trying to reach people for Christ.
So talk to the kids listening today who are interested in jump rope and they're like, okay, I think I want to try this out. What advice would you give those kids?
Okay, so the most important thing in jump rope is learning how to do the single bounce, which is just your basic jump. Now, when I'm teaching people, everybody always wants to start with the hard stuff. They're like, oh, I want to do a cross, or I want to do a rope release, or I want to do something, a little bit more challenging. But the reality is if you don't get the basics down really well, nothing else is going to work. So you definitely want to focus on just doing some of the basic jumping techniques. And so when I'm teaching people, the first part you always want to start with is how you jump. A lot of people land flat-footed. You actually want to be on the ball of your foot. So your heels never touch the ground, and you just want to jump nice and light. You should be very quiet when you're jumping. You use your knees as a little bit of a shock absorber, but just staying on the ball of the foot. And then when you're turning the rope, instead of using your entire arm, you want to use mainly your wrists and use as little energy as possible while you're jumping. So you're just jumping really light on the balls of the feet, turning the rope with the wrists, and just work on that jump until you can do it consistently, 50 or 100 times in a row. And then once you can do that, there's a lot of footwork tricks where you can maybe jump side to side, forward and backward, spread your feet apart and back together again. And then just working on different techniques from there. But I always focus on just the basic jump and getting that down so it's really consistent.
That's good advice. And is there like the best, like your favorite type of jump rope, or is it any jump rope?
Most any jump rope will work. Usually for beginners, we use what's called a beaded rope. So it's a little plastic segment of beads that have a string that goes in between them. Mm-hmm. Those are a little bit heavier, which gives you a little bit more tactile feedback. So you can actually feel the rope as it's going around. And it helps to know where the rope is, and it can help you also see it a little bit better as you're learning to jump. I use a beaded rope for most of my shows just because it also shows up better. Mm-hmm. But any kind of rope, I mean, I can jump with any kind of rope, but when you're learning, usually the beaded ropes are one of the best ones for learning.
I remember using those. I think the ones that were like made out of canvas or fabric, whatever, were the ones that always smacked me in the face, or I didn't always get them over the whole way over.
Yeah, and they also, that if you're using like a plastic rope or one of the leather ropes, they kink up a little bit easier, and so you'll sometimes have this like windy part right in the middle that'll whack you in the head or hit you in the feet. So once again, the beater ropes just spread out a little bit more. Now, with all that said, I actually learned using plastic ropes, and those are still my all-time favorite, but they also turn faster. So if you're learning, they do hurt more when you hit yourself with those.
Oh, good to know. Well, Peter, this has been so interesting. I've loved learning about jump rope and about all the records and the discipline you have. So thank you so much for being here and sharing all this with us today. How can our listeners find out more about you? Do you have videos and YouTube videos for people to watch?
Yeah, I have quite a few videos that I've made over the years. A while back, we started off with just some single rope, just individual jump rope skills. And then we actually, I put together all these like double Dutch partner jumping things. And so I've got a ton of different videos that teach how to do jump rope. So my YouTube channel is under Jump Rope Secrets. So nice and easy. And then my instructional website is jumpropesecrets.com. And on there, we have everything from just an individual thing that you can do to we actually have a full PE curriculum that we put together that can be used in schools that teach, or if you want to start a jump rope team, we've actually got a lot of information on the Jump Rope Secrets website. But we've got all that. And then if you're interested in performances, I still do travel around doing jump rope shows in schools and churches. We do school assembly programs, and then I also do ministry events in churches. And the website for that is jumprm.com for Jump Rope Masters.
Okay. Very cool. Okay. Well, good. I hope our listeners will check that out. And we'll be sure to put those websites in the show notes as well. Well, before I let you go, I always ask my guests to tell me a memory from when they were a kid. And you said you were going to tell us something about your PE teacher.
Yeah. So I told you that I wasn't very good at jump roping. And when I say I wasn't very good, like I was about the worst jumper on the planet. So here I was, second grade, and they decided they were going to have jump rope tryouts. And so the PE teacher said, hey, if you guys want on the team, you got to do 5 jumps and 1 crisscross. So we had all the kids go out. The first kid gets out there, jumps cross, you're on the team. Next kid jumps cross, you're on the team. I got out there and just totally bombed. Missed. And the PE teacher, he just looked at me very seriously and he just said, Peter, I think you should play soccer. And that was the beginning of my jump rope career, was my coach telling me I was really bad at it and I should do something else.
Did you make the team anyway or no?
Oh, no, I didn't make it all that year. For me, that was actually a good thing, because whenever you tell me I can't do something, it makes me want to do it even more.
There you go. It's like, oh, yes, I can.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. Yeah. And so I worked by myself that whole year, and I ended up getting on to the team when I was in 3rd grade. And so it was a great motivator for me. But, it definitely did not start out looking that good.
Well, and that's good too, because the win was sweeter. Like when you actually got on the team, it meant a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. And it also kept me motivated to be like, oh, well, I got on the team, let's do it next. And so that's where we ended up getting into winning the world championships pretty quickly.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, Peter, thank you so much for being on the show today. This was so fun talking with you and learning about what you do.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That was so interesting. I mean, whether you're into jump roping or not, he gave us some great advice just about how to practice well and to be disciplined. I love that he shared how he starts with his weak points in his routine, and it drives him to keep working and get better instead of focusing on the things he can't do. He also talked about discipline and said what you are disciplined in is most important. You're not automatically disciplined in what you don't want to do, but rather something you want to get better at. So you have to create a routine or a habit around that discipline that helps make it easier each day as you build on that. That's such good advice. He also talked about something that was very important to him, and that is owning your identity. Your lifestyle should reflect the identity that you're owning. So own who you are, be your unique self, who God made you to be. That's okay if you're different than someone else. Like he said, the things that you remember about someone is the unique parts of them, something that's different about who they are or what they look like. So it's cool to embrace the things that make you different. Well, if you'd like to learn more about Peter or learn to jump rope, you head over to his website, jumpropesecrets.com. You can also find him at the same title on YouTube. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is the part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So this is my friend Pippa.
Okay. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21.
Wow, I love that verse. Overcome evil with good. What a great reminder. Great job, Pippa. Thank you so much. Hey, if you'd like to be like Pippa and share your favorite quote or Bible verse or joke or song, just head over to my website, like we said before, collidekidspodcast.com. Click the tab that says Kids Only. You can record it right there. It's really easy to do on your phone and on your laptop, whichever you prefer. Or you can go to my social media and share a video with me there. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. And who knows, you might be on the next episode. And while you're on my social media, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I share lots of information about upcoming episodes and about our guests, so you can follow them and learn about the great content resources they're providing. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Collide Kids Podcast, easy to remember, where you can watch the full-length interview for today's episode. You know, a great way to support this podcast is to leave a rating and a review. When you do that, it really does help other people find out about the show. And I always love reading those and hearing what you think about it. You can also share this episode with friends and family on your social media or through text, or while you're standing next to them, say, hey, we're listening to the Collide Kids Podcast right now, and you should too. You can also go by my website and click the link that says support. And anytime you think about it, I always appreciate your prayer support as well. Well, I hope you guys have a great week. Hey, if you've never been a jump roper, go find some rope and try it out. See if it's something that you could do. You might be a world-class record breaker too. And in case no one has told you today, I would love to be the first to remind you that God loves you so much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids podcast.